Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're digging into a huge topic, the whole quest for radical life extension. Got a great stack of sources here.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I mean, for ages, the idea was just helping people live longer, maybe reach their natural limit.
Right, that limit being, what was it, Jean Calment?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don Kellman, she lived to 122 years and 164 days. That's like the documented record.
But now the goalposts have shifted, haven't they? We're not just talking about reaching 100 or 110.
Not at all. The modern goal is way more ambitious. We're talking about pushing past that biological limit.
Seriously past it.
Yeah. Some people, the life extensionists or longevists, they're aiming for, well, theoretically indefinite lifespans.
Indefinite, wow.
Through something called agerasia. Basically, complete rejuvenation. Think rolling back the clock biologically to a healthy, youthful state.
And the tools for that would be?
Things like advanced regenerative medicine, targeted gene therapy, really cutting-edge stuff.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to lay out where things stand right now with this whole quest. We'll look at the biology, the crazy tech, the stuff you can actually do now, and even the politics and ethics around it all. Okay, let's unpack this then. If we want to fight aging, we really need to understand what aging is, right? What's the mechanism? It's not just wear and tear, is it?
No, not really. Scientists have moved past that simple idea. They talk about the hallmarks of aging.
Hallmarks?
Yeah, basically a set of specific interconnected biological malfunctions or failures that happen over time. These are the things they think we could potentially, interrupt or fix.
So what are some of these hallmarks? Which ones are the toughest nuts to crack?
Well, there's genomic instability, our DNA getting damaged, and telomere attrition.
Ah, the ends of the chromosomes getting shorter.
Exactly, those protective caps wearing down. But maybe one of the trickiest is cellular senescence.
Senescence. Those are the zombie cells I've heard about.
That's the popular term, yeah. They're cells that should die off, but don't. They just hang around.
And cause trouble.
Big trouble. They spew out inflammatory stuff, damage nearby tissues. It's a real problem.
So you've got unstable DNA, these zombie cells cluttering things up. Is that the core of it, the reason we see aging?
It's a huge part of it. Add in mitochondrial dysfunction, the cell's power plants failing, and oxidative stress from free radicals. It's a complex breakdown.
And it seems like this breakdown happens at different speeds in different species.
Absolutely. Which is super interesting, actually.
Because we see some animals that just don't seem to age like we do.
Right. Well, we top out around 122. You've got creatures like hydra, certain flatworms, even some jellyfish. They show what scientists call potential biological immortality.
Meaning they don't die of old age.
Essentially, yeah. Their aging rate seems negligible. It suggests the whole process is deeply tied to a species' genetics.
Which hints that maybe it's changeable.
That's the hope. The big goal isn't just treating age-related diseases like heart disease or cancer. It's changing the fundamental rate of aging itself.
Okay, so if the clock is genetic, you try to hack the clock. Here's where it gets really interesting, right? Let's shift to the high-tech stuff. The strategies aiming for radical extension.
Yeah, this is where things get pretty futuristic. Gene editing is probably the biggest player right now. Technologies like CRISPR-Cas9.
CRISPR. We hear a lot about that. Has it actually extended life in anything?
Oh, yeah. In lab settings, the results are striking. They've tweaked single genes in nematode worms and extended their lifespan tenfold.
10 times.
Yep. And in mice, similar single gene changes have led to roughly a 50% increase in lifespan.
Wow. Okay, 50% in humans would be game-changing.
Yeah.
That's like adding decades. But some people are thinking even bigger, aren't they? Like nanotech?
Definitely. You have futurists like Raymond Kurzweil talking about advanced medical nanorobotics.
Tiny robots in our bloodstream.
Kind of, yeah. The idea, pushed by people like K. Eric Drexler decades ago, is nanomedicine microscopic machines that could repair cells from the inside out.
Kurzweil thinks this could fix aging by 2030. That sounds incredibly soon. Is that realistic or just, hype?
Well, the 2030 timeline is, let's say, very optimistic. But the underlying concept, molecular repair, is a serious theoretical goal. Could tiny machines fix damage faster than it occurs? Maybe. It's the swallow the doctor idea.
Okay, beyond tiny robots, the sources also mention bigger replacements, like growing organs.
Right. Therapeutic cloning and stem cell research. That's moving forward, actually.
Yeah, you could do that now.
On a smaller scale, yes. For instance, scientists have successfully grown bladders from a patient's own cells and implanted them. It works.
That's incredible.
The more extreme end of this is the transhumanist idea of growing whole replacement bodies without consciousness for brain transplants.
Whoa, okay, that sounds ethically complicated.
Deeply controversial, yes, and highly speculative at this point. Reproductive cloning itself is already a minefield.
And while we're on controversial tech, we have to mention cryonics. Freezing people.
Yes, cryopreservation. People pay a lot of money for it, hoping science can eventually revive them.
But the science.
Okay, let's be really clear here, because the sources are quite strong on this. The mainstream scientific community is extremely skeptical. It's often characterized as quackery.
Quackery. That's blunt. Why such a harsh dismissal? It sounds like the ultimate backup plan.
Because there's currently zero evidence that it can work. The damage caused by freezing itself is immense, let alone reversing the disease that killed the person.
So there's no proof you can actually unfreeze someone successfully?
None. And no clear path with current or foreseeable technology. So from a scientific standpoint, it relied entirely on faith in future breakthroughs that might not be possible.
Got it. Okay, so that's the far out stuff. Let's maybe pivot back to what's happening now, or at least being seriously researched in labs and pharma companies.
Right. Moving from the highly speculative to the nearer-term possibilities.
And importantly, trying to sort out what's real science versus what's just being sold to people.
Exactly. A big focus in pharmaceutical research is on drugs that mimic the effects of caloric restriction.
Caloric restriction, just eating less.
Yeah. Studies in some animals show that significantly restricting calories extends lifespan. It's quite a robust finding, actually. So the idea is to find drugs that trick the body into thinking it's restricting calories without actually starving.
What kind of drugs are we talking about?
Things like rapamycin and metformin are being studied quite intensely. They're called caloric restriction mimetics.
So if these drugs show promise, why don't we have an FDA-approved anti-aging pill on the market?
Ah, that's the big hurdle. It's regulatory. Currently, aging itself isn't officially recognized as a disease or a preventable condition by governments, including the FDA in the U.S.
Wait, aging isn't a disease? That seems counterintuitive.
Well, the FDA's official stance is that no medication has been proven to slow or reverse the aging process in humans. Because it's not classified as a treatable condition, it makes it very difficult for drug companies to run large-scale trials, specifically targeting aging.
And that regulatory gap, does that open the door for, well, less regulated stuff?
Precisely. It creates a kind of loophole. The commercial anti-aging market, supplements, hormone therapies, is absolutely massive.
So massive.
We're talking huge numbers. Back in 2009, it was estimated at around $50 billion a year just in the U.S. And it's likely much bigger now.
But you're saying these products aren't necessarily proven.
Many aren't, especially things like hormone replacement therapies promoted for anti-aging. They generally haven't been proven effective or even safe for that purpose.
And sometimes regulators have to step in.
They do. The FDA has had to warn companies, for example, those promoting so-called young blood transfusions, as an anti-aging treatment. There's just no solid proof it works, and it carries risks.
Okay, so forget the expensive, unproven stuff for a minute. What does work? What are the reliable, validated strategies for extending health span, the healthy years of life?
This is where we get back to basics, but the evidence is really strong. Diet and activity are absolutely key.
Like the Mediterranean diet.
Exactly. Higher adherence to a Mediterranean-style eating pattern is consistently linked with reduced mortality and better health in later life.
What about the wine aspect of that diet?
Ah, good question. While traditional Mediterranean diets often include moderate wine consumption, the optimal diet research suggests keeping alcohol to a minimum for longevity benefits.
Okay. And antioxidants. For years, we were told to load up on vitamin C, vitamin E, fight those free radicals.
Yeah, the whole free radical theory of aging. It turned out to be more complicated.
How so?
Well, those free radicals, or reactive oxygen species, ROS, aren't just bad. Our body actually uses them for important things, like cell signaling.
So taking huge doses of antioxidant supplements might actually interfere with necessary processes.
That's the concern. And it's more than just a concern. Some big reviews have actually found that supplementing with certain vitamins, specifically vitamin A, as beta-carotene and vitamin E, might increase mortality risk.
Increase, so the opposite of what we thought.
Potentially, yes. It's a really stark reminder that more isn't always better, especially when messing with complex biological systems.
Wow, that's huge. So Pills might be out, or at least need extreme caution. What's left?
Activity. Good old-fashioned physical activity. The research consistently supports it.
I'm not sure, Doc.
Current guidelines suggest aiming for about 2.5 to 5 hours per week of moderate or vigorous activity. That seems to be the sweet spot for maximizing health benefits.
And other lifestyle factors.
Absolutely. Things like maintaining strong social connections, getting good quality sleep, these are consistently linked to better health and longevity. These are the tools we know work right now.
Okay, so let's zoom out again. We've got the basic science, the far-out tech, the current best practices. What about the bigger picture? The money, the politics? This isn't just happening in labs, is it?
Not at all. There's serious money pouring into this field, especially from Silicon Valley.
Like who?
Big names. Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison, Peter Thiel, Sam Altman. They've invested heavily in anti-aging research companies and foundations. Think Calico, Human Longevity, Inc.
So the tech billionaires are betting big on cracking the aging code. Does that influence politics?
It certainly translates into advocacy. You've actually seen longevity political parties pop up in places like Russia and the U.S. Their main goal is to push for more government support for this kind of research.
And it's being discussed at really high levels.
Apparently so. Our sources mention, partially of course, a 2025 discussion between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin that touched on organ transplants and, quote, immortality.
Immortality discussed between world leaders.
Yes. With Putin reportedly talking about biotechnology, potentially making people younger and younger, it shows this isn't just a fringe scientific idea anymore. It's on the geopolitical radar.
Let's circle back to that regulatory issue classifying aging as a disease. You said the FDA doesn't. Why not? What's the argument against calling aging a disease?
The main argument, often associated with scientists like Leonard Hayflick, is that aging isn't like, say, influenza. It's a natural, universal process, an unavoidable consequence of entropy, almost.
A force of nature, not a pathology.
Kind of. Most mainstream medical bodies don't classify it as a disease because everyone experiences it if they live long enough. It's inevitable.
But the people who want it classified as a disease have practical reasons for
Very practical. They argue it should be considered a special sort of disease. Why? Mainly strategy.
Strategy how?
If aging were classified as a condition the FDA could target, it would likely stimulate much more research and funding for treatments from mainstream pharma. And, crucially, it would allow the FDA to regulate that huge, currently under-regulated anti-aging market much more tightly.
So it's about legitimizing the research and cracking down on dubious products.
That's a big part of the push, yes. Bringing it under proper medical and regulatory oversight, rather than leaving it in the realm of cosmetics and supplements.
Okay, last big area, ethics. If we could radically extend life, what are the big worries? Overpopulation seems like the classic one.
It is. Critics like Leon Kass raise that concern forcefully. Would society collapse under the weight of billions of near immortals? Would we lose our connection to future generations?
But there are counter-arguments.
There are. Some proponents, like Aubrey de Grey, suggest that if life extension also delays or eliminates menopause, women could have children over a much longer period. This might actually decrease the annual population growth rate, as births could be spaced out more.
Interesting point. What about fairness? Equity? If this tech works, won't it just be for the rich?
That's probably the biggest ethical concern. Philosophers like Nick Bostrom argue very strongly that any breakthroughs must be shared equitably.
The idea of creating a massive gap between the long-lived wealthy and everyone else.
It's a dystopian scenario many people fear. The social and political pressure to ensure fair access, if such therapies become reality, would be absolutely immense.
We have definitely covered a lot of ground. From, the nitty-gritty of telomeres and senescent cells all the way up to nanobots, global politics, and these huge ethical questions.
It's a really dynamic field. You've got the careful, rigorous biology trying to understand the mechanisms, and then you've got these, well, sometimes wild-sounding technological ambitions pushing the boundaries.
So the takeaway for right now seems to be focus on the proven stuff.
For maximizing your healthy years today, absolutely. That means things like the Mediterranean diet pattern, consistent exercise, good sleep, social connections. Be very wary of expensive supplements or unproven treatments.
While the radical stuff, the genetic engineering, the nanomedicine, that's still more of a future promise.
It is. It depends on massive scientific and technological leaps that haven't happened yet. Very exciting potential, but still potential.
It leaves us with a really interesting final thought for you, the listener. We mentioned polling. Most Americans think life-extending medical advances are generally good. But a majority, 56% in one poll, said they personally would reject treatments to slow aging and live to 120 or more.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? Why the hesitation?
Is it maybe because we associate living longer with just more years of being frail and sick, that deep-seated fear of a prolonged, decrepit old age?
Could be.
So here's the question to chew on. If science could promise not just longer life, but radically extended health, decades, maybe centuries of youthful vigor, would that change your answer? What would your ideal lifespan be then? Something to think about until our next deep dive. Welcome, curious minds. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a figure whose image is, well, everywhere. A face you probably recognize from a t-shirt or a poster.
Absolutely. Instantly recognizable.
But his true story is often buried under myth and, let's be honest, some incredibly strong opinions. Ernesto Che Guevara. You sent us a ton of information, especially a really detailed biography, and our mission today is to unpack this complex figure, moving beyond just the icon, explore the surprising facts, the different viewpoints, and the journey that made him both, well, revered and sometimes reviled.
It is a fascinating challenge because even with all this documentation, his legacy is still so incredibly polarized. What we'll try to do is connect the dots, between his early life and his later revolutionary actions.
Right.
And maybe raise some important questions about conviction, the price of change, and, well, what it means to chase a vision for a better world.
Okay, let's unpack this. You think revolutionary, maybe you picture someone from humble beginnings, but our sources show Che Guevara wasn't born into revolution at all. He actually came from an upper-class Argentine family.
Yeah, Irish and Basque roots in there, too. And from a very young age, clearly very intellectually driven.
And that's striking, isn't it? Born Ernesto Guevara, though even his birth date, apparently, was a bit fudged on the certificate to avoid a scandal. Hints at a life that was always going to be complex, maybe.
Could be. He grew up in a house with definite leftist leanings. His father even hosted Spanish Civil War veterans. That must have shaped his early views.
Absolutely. What really stands out to me from the sources is just how much of a polymath he was. Learned chess at 12, loved poetry, Neruda. Whitman had this 3,000-book library at home.
Wow.
Read Marx, Freud, Faulkner, everything. There's even a CIA report from back then, and yeah, it has its biases, but it notes him as quite well-read and fairly intellectual for a Latino.
Yeah.
Sort of backhanded compliment, but it shows they noticed his intellect. And despite having severe asthma his whole life, he was this ferocious athlete. Swimming, football, golf, shooting, an untiring cyclist, they said, and a furious rugby player, got the nickname Fuser.
Fuser.
Yeah, short for furious, and his mother's surname, Serna.
So you've got this intellectual powerhouse, physically tough despite the asthma, soaking up progressive ideas since childhood. It's a really unconventional foundation for a revolutionary, isn't it?
Totally.
Which makes you wonder, how does a medical student with this rich inner life switch from healing to, well, armed struggle? What was the spark?
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Our sources point to two huge journeys that basically flipped his worldview. After starting medical school in Buenos Aires in '48, he had this hunger to explore the world. Led to 2 big trips across South America. The second one, 9 months, 8,000 kilometers on a motorcycle with his friend Alberto Granado. That's the big one.
The one from the Motorcycle Diaries, right?
Exactly. It ended at a leper colony in Peru.
And it sounds like these weren't just sightseeing trips, more like diving headfirst into the suffering. What did he see that changed him so much?
It was brutal, just raw immersion. He saw the poverty, hunger, and disease everywhere in South America, got really angry about the conditions at Anaconda's big copper mine in Chile.
Right.
He met this persecuted communist couple in the Atacama Desert, described them as shivering flesh and blood victims of capitalist exploitation, just stunned by the crushing poverty of peasant farmers near Machu Picchu.
Wow. So injustice on one side.
But then on the other side, he was really moved by the human solidarity and loyalty he saw, especially among people at that leper colony.
So it's that contrast, isn't it? Systemic suffering, but also this deep human connection. It's striking how these face-to-face encounters kind of solidified his abstract ideas.
Yeah.
He went from, understanding exploitation in theory to seeing the human cost right there, and concluding that only radical political action, revolution could fix it. That seems to be the shift. Yeah.
And that new commitment got tested almost immediately in Guatemala. He arrived there in December 53.
What drew him there?
President Jacobo Arbenz. His democratically elected government was pushing these big land reforms, taking unused land from huge estates, especially from the United Fruit Company. They had something like 225,000 acres.
Ah, United Fruit. That always rings bells.
Right. Guevara was excited. He decided to stay and, in his words, perfect himself and accomplish whatever may be necessary in order to become a true revolutionary.
Okay, so here comes the geopolitics. How did the U.S. react, especially with United Fruit involved?
Predictably, maybe. The U.S. government, through the CIA Operation PB Success, went all out. Anti-Arbenz propaganda, bombing raids, sponsored an invasion force under Carlos Castillo Armas.
Wow.
Arbenz resigned in June 54. The Armas Junta took over, executed suspected communists, reversed the land reforms. Guevara wanted to fight for Arbenz, but got frustrated by inaction, ended up seeking refuge in the Argentine consulate.
So that experience.
That overthrow, the sources really stress this, it cemented Guevara's view of the United States as an imperialist power, one that actively crushes governments trying to fix inequality. His first wife, Hilda Gadea, said it was Guatemala which finally convinced him of the necessity for armed struggle. He was sure when he left.
That period is absolutely crucial then. It's where his Marxist theory crashes into real-world intervention, turns academic belief into this burning need for active armed resistance against what he called octopus capitalism, from thinker to doer.
So what did this incredibly intense experience mean for his next move? After Guatemala, still really focused on poverty, he moved to Mexico City, worked as a doctor, even a news photographer for a bit, and there he met some Cuban exiles.
Right. This feels like a turning point. Who did he meet? The Castros.
Bingo. Introduced first to Raul Castro, then Fidel. After a long conversation, apparently a very long one,
I bet.
Guevara decided Fidel's cause was it. This was what he was looking for. Joined the 26th of July movement right away, saw Batista, the Cuban dictator, as just a U.S. puppet whose strings needed cutting.
And he wasn't just signing up as a medic, was he?
No, that was the plan initially. But he just excelled in military training under Alberto Bello. Scored the highest, named the best guerrilla. It was unexpected. He also married Hilda Gadea around this time, September 55.
That quick jump from medic to best guerrilla, it says something about his natural strategic ability, doesn't it? And his dedication. He wasn't just theorizing anymore. He was all in, looking for a way to act.
Absolutely. And this set the stage for the Grandma invasion, the yacht trip to Cuba, and then the brutal fight in the Sierra Maestra Mountains.
Right, yes, the Grandma. That didn't go smoothly, did it?
Not at all. Set out November 56, Batista's forces attacked almost immediately. Only 22 survivors made it ashore. And there's this defining moment, almost symbolic, during that fight. He puts down his medical bag and picks up a box of ammunition from a guy who was running away. A clear choice.
Wow. Combat over healing.
Yeah. The tiny group regrouped deep in the mountains, the Sierra Maestra, got help from Frank Pace's urban underground network and the local campesinos, the poor farmers there.
And living among those farmers, his medical side must have come back. What did he find?
Exactly. He saw their conditions firsthand. No schools, no electricity, hardly any health care. Over 40% couldn't read or write. These weren't abstract issues anymore. This was the reality for the people he was fighting alongside.
Right.
So, as the war dragged on, Guevara became central. Not just fighting. He set up workshops to make grenades, built ovens for bread, started schools, clinics, military workshops, even a newspaper.
Building a whole new society in the mountains, almost.
And he was key in setting up Radio Rebelde in February 58. That clandestine radio station, apparently inspired by seeing how the CIA used radio back in Guatemala.
Turning the enemy's tools against them. Clever.
Fidel promoted him to Comandante. Time magazine even called him Castro's brain.
He wasn't just a soldier then. He was a strategist, an organizer, a propagandist. But what about his leadership style? The sources mention it was complex.
Definitely complex. On one hand, notoriously harsh discipline, shot defectors, informers, spies, feared for his brutality and ruthlessness. There's one specific chilling example. Executing Ché Guevara, a peasant informant, shot him in the head himself, and noted it down with scientific notations. Talk about detachment.
Wow, scientific notations. That's deeply unsettling. It forces you to ask, is that level of ruthlessness just a necessity in a revolution, or is it something darker?
It's a huge question because the contradiction is so stark. While capable of that, he was also this dedicated teacher. Read Stevenson, Cervantes, Spanish poets to his men, made literacy lessons mandatory for the campesinos who couldn't read.
So feared and respected.
Exactly. Fidel Castro called him intelligent, daring, and exemplary leader, great moral authority, but also admitted he had a tendency toward foolhardiness. That duality, feared and admired, really highlights the messy ethical reality of Revolutionary War. Then his tactical skills really came to the fore, played a crucial part in the Battle of Las Mercedes, stopping 1,500 of Batista's troops. A U.S. Marine major later called his tactics there brilliant.
I praise.
Then he led a column west for the final push, scored these brilliant tactical victories in Las Villas province, led his suicide squad, as they called it, in the key Battle of Santa Clara, outnumbered 10-1, apparently.
10-1, and they won.
They won. Radio Rebelde announced it on New Year's Eve, 1958. Batista fled Cuba. Guevara rolled into Havana January 2nd, 1959. Victory.
That Santa Clara victory really sealed it, didn't it? Cemented his reputation. Tactical genius, yes, but also that unwavering, maybe frightening ruthlessness. Hard to square those two, but both seem key to his success then.
So after the win, Che becomes this major figure in the new Cuban government. And here's the shift. From military guy to, economic and ideological architect.
Right, nation-building time.
First up, early 59, he's commander of La Cabaña Fortress Prison, tasked with revolutionary justice, dealing with Batista officials, informers, people seen as traitors.
Revolutionary justice, that sounds potentially fraught.
It was. He reviewed appeals. Some people were convicted and executed by firing squad. Now, sources do note huge public support for this, 93% approval in surveys. You have to remember, Batista's regime was brutal, killed thousands, maybe up to 20,000.
So a feeling of retribution was strong among the people.
Very strong. But the criticism is sharp, too. Biographers say he was hardened, had no qualms about summary trials, without respect for due process. John Lee Anderson argues he never executed an innocent person. Critics call him the butcher of La Cabaña, claim he relished the rituals.
It's a stark difference in perspective.
It really is. Guevara himself said the firing squads were a necessity and an imposition of the people. They even broadcast the execution of Colonel Rojas, the Santa Clara police chief, on TV.
Wow. That sends a message.
Definitely. It shows the harsh reality of these revolutionary transitions. Justice for past crimes versus legal rights in the moment. It's a core tension. As his role grew, Che became, as some put it, the virtual czar of the Cuban economy, and started pushing these really radical ideas. February 59, he's proclaimed a Cuban citizen by birth.
Symbolic.
Very. He divorced Hilda Gadea, married Elida March. Then in May 59, he authors the big agrarian reform law, limiting farm sizes, taking over large estates for redistribution or state communes, banning foreign ownership of sugar plantations.
Hitting the economic structure hard. And his titles reflected this growing power.
Oh, yeah. Minister of Finance, President of the National Bank. That's when he famously signed the currency with just Che.
Just Che. That's quite a statement.
Yeah. Total disdain for money, class distinctions, and Minister of Industries. These weren't just jobs. They were symbols of his anti-materialist vision. And he stepped onto the world stage quickly, too. Did a 3-month tour of Bandung-packed countries, nations trying to stay non-aligned, often former colonies. Morocco, India, Japan.
Japan? What was his approach there?
Interesting. He refused to visit their Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, called them imperialists. But he made a point of going to Hiroshima, the peace memorial, said, in order to fight better for peace, one must look at Hiroshima.
Powerful.
Yeah. Then, after the Lacuber ship explosion in Havana Harbor, March 1960, blamed on the CIA. That's when Alberto Corta took the photo. Guerrero Heroico, the iconic one.
Ah, that photo.
He also ran INRA, the National Institute of Agrarian Reform, used a 100,000-strong militia to seize land, including nearly 500,000 acres from U.S. companies. That, predictably, led the U.S. to slash Cuban sugar imports.
So internal reform, global diplomacy, and escalating conflict with the U.S. all at once. What else was key to his vision inside Cuba?
The literacy campaign. This was huge. It called 1961 the Year of Education, mobilized over 100,000 volunteers, these literacy brigades, boosted the national literacy rate from maybe 60-75% up to 96%. A remarkable success, the sources say.
96%. That is remarkable. A huge achievement.
And he pushed for universal access to higher ed, too. Told the university it needed to paint itself black, mulatto, worker, and peasant, and the privilege of the white middle class.
The ambition is just staggering, isn't it? Land, education, fundamentally reshaping society. That shift signature really summed up his whole anti-establishment vibe. He wanted to change everything.
In the core of that vision, the concept of the new man, el hombre nuevo.
Like the ideological heart of it.
He saw the revolution as Marxist, fulfilling laws foreseen by Marx, the scientist. But he believed changing structures wasn't enough. You had to change people's consciousness, their values, create this new man.
What was this new man supposed to be like?
Selfless and cooperative, obedient and hardworking, gender-blind, incorruptible, non-materialistic, and anti-imperialist. He stressed moral rewards over material ones. Capitalism, he said, was just a contest among wolves.
And he tried to live it.
Definitely led by example, worked endlessly, they say. 36-hour shifts sometimes, cutting sugarcane on his days off. Workers who did well got certificates, those who didn't got pay cuts. He believed what mattered was the individual feeling more complete, with much more internal richness and much more responsibility.
A very idealistic view of motivation.
Extremely. Though there's also mention of him ordering the Guanahacabib's labor camp built for rehabilitating employees with work issues. Extra legal, not well documented, but it's there. And he pushed for closer ties with the Eastern Bloc, Czechoslovakia, the USSR.
So this utopian new man idea, how did it play out economically? Did the moral incentives work?
Mostly no. The sources say his economic programs were largely unsuccessful. Productivity dropped fast, absenteeism shot up. He blamed the land reform for encouraging too much individual ownership. Critics like Ernesto just called him ignorant of the most elementary economic principles. His idealism seemed to crash against economic realities.
And these tensions must have been amplified during the big Cold War crises involving Cuba.
Absolutely. 1961, he's pushing a 4-year plan for rapid industrialization, aiming for 15% annual growth. Then the Bay of Pigs invasion hits in April '61.
He played a role in defending against that, didn't he?
Yeah, he was director of instruction for the armed forces, credited with preparing the 200,000 militia members who helped defeat the invasion. Afterwards, at an economic conference in Uruguay, he's pure sarcasm towards the U.S., thanks them for the Bay of Pigs, says the revolution was shaky and now it's stronger than ever, and slams U.S. democracy, racism, KKK, Oppenheimer, the Rosenbergs. Even quipped about the revolution of the toilet.
Fiery stuff.
Yeah.
But the economic plans were struggling.
Badly. By March '62, Che himself admits the plan was absurd, disconnected from reality, imaginary resources. Cuba starts food rationing, sugar production plummets.
And this is when the missile crisis brews.
Exactly. He was the main architect of the Cuba-Soviet relationship, played a key role in bringing Soviet nuclear missiles to Cuba, traveled to the USSR to sign the deal. That, of course, led straight to the Cuban Missile Crisis in October '62.
The world holds its breath.
Totally. And afterwards, Che was furious. Felt betrayed by the Soviets backing down. Told a British newspaper that if the missiles had been under Cuban control, they'd have fired them.
Fired them, knowing the consequences.
He apparently believed millions of atomic war victims would have been worth it for socialist liberation. That crisis convinced him both superpowers just used Cuba as a pawn. Started denouncing the Soviets almost as much as the Americans.
Wow. That's uncompromising, doesn't even cover it.
He resigned as head of industries in '63, wrote an essay in '64, The Cuban Economy, admitting 2 principal errors, especially trying to move away from sugar too fast, recognized its importance.
That period just shows his fierce independence, doesn't it? Willing to risk nuclear war, criticize his main allies. Always driven by this absolute ideological purity no matter the cost.
By late '64, Che is this global figure, a revolutionary statesman of world stature, traveling constantly, pushing his vision, led the Cuban delegation to the UN December '64.
What was his message there?
Powerful stuff. Slammed apartheid, U.S. racial discrimination, declared Latin America a family of 200 million brothers who suffered the same miseries, warned Yankee monopoly capitalism would meet its gravediggers in the anonymous mass, writing its own history with its own blood.
Strong words. Any incidents while he was there?
2 failed assassination attempts. He just quipped that a bazooka blast nearby had given the whole thing more flavor. While in New York, he went on CBS's Face the Nation, met Senator Eugene McCarthy, met people connected to Malcolm X who apparently admired Che.
So incredibly high profile. Where else did he go on that tour? Anything stand out?
3 months across the globe. China, North Korea, Algeria, Ghana, Ireland, actually.
Ireland.
Yeah, celebrated St. Patrick's Day in Limerick. Joked about his Irish heritage. But there was also a really controversial incident reported from Algeria, apparently through a book by an openly gay Cuban writer, Virgilio Piñera, shouting about not wanting a foul faggots book in the embassy.
Shows a darker side. prejudices alongside the revolutionary zeal.
Definitely adds complexity. During this trip, he also wrote Socialism and Man in Cuba, outlined his whole new man idea again, declared the true revolutionary is guided by a great feeling of love.
Love and prejudice. It's quite a mix. He's challenging global powers, but also showing these deeply ingrained biases.
His final public speech, though, was in Algiers, February '65, and it was a bombshell. He openly accused the socialist countries, including the Soviet Union, Cuba's main sponsor, of tacit complicity with the exploiting Western countries.
Accusing his allies. Wow.
Yeah, and called for many Vietnams, widespread guerrilla war. His private writings from then show him getting really critical of the Soviet economy, thought they'd forgotten Marx, were heading back to capitalism, their peaceful coexistence policy. Dangerous.
So this was a major break. Moving away from statecraft towards global insurgency, sticking to his pure ideology, even if it meant alienating his biggest backer, almost like he felt Cuba itself was getting too settled.
Exactly. 2 weeks after that speech, he gets back to Cuba and vanishes from public view.
Vanishes, just like that.
Gone. Rumors flew. Industrial failures. Soviet pressure. Disagreements with Fidel. Nobody knew. Then, October 3rd, 1965, Castro reads out Che's farewell letter. Undated. Che resigns everything, renounces Cuban citizenship, says he's going abroad to fight for revolution.
Wow. So that's it. The final act begins.
Yeah. First stop, Africa. Early '65, using the alias Ramon Benitez, he leads a Cuban mission to Congo, supporting the leftist Simba rebels, trying to export the revolution, teach Marxist theory, Foucault theory, the idea that a small guerrilla force can spark a bigger uprising.
Trying to replicate the Cuban model again. How did it go in Congo?
Not well. He got disillusioned fast. Said the Congolese troops had poor discipline, the human element failed, nothing to do. Plus, the U.S. and CIA were all over it, monitoring him, helping the Congolese army shut him down.
Another setback.
A big one. He left Congo November '65, later called it a story of a failure. Then he spends 6 months underground. Dar es Salaam, Prague, writing his Congo memoirs, drafting new books. He even secretly met Juan Perón, the former Argentine president, in exile in Spain. Told him his plan, start a communist revolution across Latin America, beginning in Bolivia.
What did Perón think?
Who warned him it was suicidal and futile. Though later, Perón apparently called Che an immature utopian, but one of ours. Quite the comment. Che went back to Cuba secretly, July '66, saw Castro, saw his family, wrote a final letter to his kids. That famous line is in it. Above all, always be capable of feeling deeply any injustice committed against anyone, anywhere in the world. This is the most beautiful quality in a revolutionary.
Poignant. And then Bolivia.
Bolivia. Changed his look, shaved the beard, dyed his hair gray, used a fake name, arrived in La Paz, November '66, set up his guerrilla army, the ELN, only about 50 guys, had some early success against the Bolivian army who weren't well trained initially.
It started okay, but it fell apart fast, right? What went wrong?
A lot. First, he expected help from local dissidents. The Bolivian Communist Party got nothing. Called the party distrustful, disloyal, and stupid. Big mistake.
Okay. Lack of local support. What else?
He didn't know the U.S. had sent in CIA commandos and Army Special Forces to help the Bolivians. The game changed.
Outside intervention again.
Yeah. Plus, their radios were bad. Couldn't contact Havana, couldn't get resupplied, totally isolated. And his own style, that preference for confrontation rather than compromise, apparently it damaged relationships with potential local allies. Castro had managed that tendency back in Cuba, but now...
He was on his own.
And crucially, couldn't recruit locals. Many became informants instead. He wrote in his diary, talking to these peasants is like talking to statues. Maybe a language barrier too, but mostly lack of connection. CIA operative Felix Rodriguez was advising the Bolivians. Some even say Klaus Barbie, the Nazi war criminal, helped. Just a total disaster waiting to happen.
A perfect storm of failure factors.
Right.
Leading to the end.
October 7th, 1967. An informant gives up their location. October 8th. Battle. Che is wounded, captured. Reportedly yelled, "Do not shoot. I am Che Guevara and I am worth more to you alive than dead."
Alive than dead. Ironic.
Taken to a little schoolhouse in La Higuera, refused interrogation, kicked an officer who tried to take his pipe, spat in another's face, still defiant, spoke quietly with some soldiers, talked to the local schoolteacher, Julia Cortez, told her the schoolhouse was in terrible shape, anti-pedagogical, while government officials drive Mercedes cars. Said, that's what we're fighting against. Right to the end.
Even captured, still focused on the cause.
Yeah.
What was the final decision?
October 9th, Bolivian President Barrientos orders his execution. Didn't want an escape, didn't want the drama of a trial.
Quick and quiet.
Felix Rodriguez, the CIA guy, relayed the order, told the executioner, Sergeant Mario Terran, who volunteered. Apparently, his friends died fighting Ché's group. Told him not to shoot Ché in the head. Make it look like he died in combat.
Stage managed to the last detail.
His last words, to Terran, I know you've come to kill me. Shoot, coward. You are only going to kill a man. Terran shot him 9 times. Pronounced dead 1:10 p.m. His epitaph, something he'd written months before. Wherever death may surprise us, let it be welcome, provided that this, our battle cry, may have reached some receptive ear and another hand may be extended to wield our weapons.
And his death.
Yeah.
It wasn't the end, was it? In a way, it was just the beginning of the myth, the symbol.
That's the incredible thing. Instantly, his image takes on this whole other life. They display his body in Vallegrande. Freddie Alborda takes these photos. People compared them to paintings of Christ.
Yeah, the John Berger essay comparing them to Rembrandt and Mantegna.
Yeah, exactly. The locals snipped locks of his hair like holy relics. There's even a declassified memo, Walt Rostow to President Johnson, calling the decision to kill him stupid. Bad move, strategically.
Right. Made him a martyr.
They cut off his hands for fingerprint ID, sent them to Cuba. His diary from Bolivia. Captured, published everywhere. Showed all the struggles, the recruitment problems, the language barrier. They learned Quechua. Locals spoke to Piguarani. Regis Drey, the French intellectual captured earlier, called them victims of the forest, starving, sick. Said Ché seemed resigned to die, saw death as a rebirth, a ritual of renewal.
So his death didn't silence him. It amplified him, turned him into this global icon almost overnight. Regardless of what people actually knew about his life, how did Cuba react officially?
October 15th, 1967, Fidel goes public, confirms Ché's death. 3 days of national mourning. Then October 18th addresses 1 million people in Havana, declares, if we wish to say how we want our children to be educated, we must say without hesitation, we want them to be educated in Ché's spirit.
Wow. Setting him up as the ultimate role model.
And protests erupt worldwide against the assassination, rallies everywhere. Mexico, Santiago, Budapest, Prague. His face starts appearing on walls, banners, London, Paris. Then 1968 hits riots in Berlin, France, Chicago, U.S. campuses. Students copy his look. Black Panthers adopt the beret, the Chi-type style.
It's amazing how fast he became this universal symbol of rebellion. His ideas, even the flawed ones, clearly struck a chord deep in Cuba and way beyond.
And his legacy, it's still argued over, especially in Cuba and Argentina. In Cuba, despite his industrial plans failing, the half-completed or empty factories, that ideal of the socialist new man stuck around.
For better or worse?
Well, between 65 and 68, people deemed antisocial, not fitting the new man mold, were sent to UMA labor camps. So a dark side there, too. After his death, Cuba actually pulled back from exporting revolution via guerrilla war, got closer to the Soviets again, dropped his economic diversification ideas for a while.
But his influence didn't completely vanish, did it?
No way. Later Cuban economic reforms, the rectification of errors in the late 80s, the battle of ideas in the 2000s, Castro justified them as a return to Ché's principles, emphasizing moral incentives, getting rid of private businesses again. In Argentina, his homeland, he influenced revolutionary Peronism, linking national liberation and social revolution. Ché himself had called for unity with Peronism, saw them as allies. Perón called him one of ours, perhaps the best. His face is still on banners there, a fixture on the left.
That new man ideal, it just kept echoing, didn't it? Even when practical policy shifted, shows how powerful that core vision remained.
And then, years later, this incredibly dramatic moment, they find his body.
Right, that was in the 90s.
Late 95, a Bolivian general finally reveals where he was buried. July 97, they find the remains. A body, no hands. Confirmed it was him using dental records, even found a little bag of pipe tobacco in his jacket pocket.
Wow, pipe tobacco.
October 17th, 1997. 30 years and 8 days after his execution. His remains are flown back to Cuba, reinterred with full military honors, in a mausoleum in Santa Clara, the city where he won that decisive battle. Then in 2008, Bolivia released his sealed diaries. More pieces of the puzzle.
Bringing him home, physically, completed that symbolic journey, didn't it? Anchored the myth back to the place of his greatest triumph.
So we're left with this huge, polarized biographical debate. His life, his legacy, still fiercely contested, full of these contradictions, right? Secular humanists who executed enemies. Idealists who loved literature but crushed dissent, anti-capitalists whose face sells millions of T-shirts. What jumps out at you from all these conflicting takes?
The sheer range is incredible. You got Nelson Mandela calling him an inspiration, Jean-Paul Sartre, the most complete human being of our age, Graham Greene praising his gallantry, chivalry, adventure. Susan Sontag saying he fought for humanity itself. Even a former CIA guy, Philip G., called him the most feared because of his charisma. And Murray Rothbard, a libertarian, called him a heroic figure.
That's some heavy praise from unexpected places. But the criticism is just as intense, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Jacobo Machover, callous executioner. Armando Valladares, man full of hatred. Carlos Alberto Montaner, Robespierre mentality. Alvaro Vargas Llosa paints him as a Marxist Puritan, a cold-blooded killing machine, blames his blind ideological orthodoxy for Cuba's problems.
And the mixed views?
They try to bridge the gap, maybe. William Ratliff sees a fearless messiah-like figure, maybe a product of a martyr-loving Latin culture. Hugh Thomas saw him as brave, sincere, determined, but also obstinate, narrow, and dogmatic. Maybe even grew convinced of the virtues of violence for its own sake. Samuel Farber calls him honest and committed, but faults him for never embracing socialism in its most democratic essence. These aren't just small disagreements. They're fundamentally different ways of seeing the man and his impact. It really forces you to grapple with means versus ends, the human cost of revolution.
And the image itself. He's a national hero in Cuba. On the 3-peso coin, kids pledge, "We will be like Che." Schools, museums, statues in Argentina. Some Bolivian farmers even call him Saint Ernesto.
Saint Ernesto.
Then, many Cuban exiles, still pure hatred, the butcher of La Cabaña. And yet, that Jim Fitzpatrick photo from '68, the high contrast one, it's become this universally merchandised icon on everything, which is deeply ironic given his views on consumer culture.
Ultimately, maybe his significance now is less about the specific man, Che Guevara, and more about the idea he represents or what people project onto him. He's still this powerful catalyst, making us think about justice, revolution, the individual's role in changing the world, for better or worse.
So we've gone through this incredibly complex life, Che Guevara. Curious medical student to global revolutionary icon, explored the legacy, the contradictions. What a profound and often, bewildering figure.
Indeed. His story just compels you to face these tough questions about idealism, the true cost of revolution, and how powerful a symbol can become, especially in a world still wrestling with injustice and the desire for change.
What stands out to you about Che Guevara after hearing all this? Does that iconic face make it harder, or maybe easier, to see the real person behind it? It's worth thinking about how his story pushes against your own ideas about leadership, sacrifice, and what it really means to chase a better world.
Welcome, Deep Dive Explorers. Get ready to plunge with us into one of Earth's most, mysterious and extreme environments.
Absolutely. We're talking deep.
We are talking about the deep sea, yeah. A realm so vast, so alien, it kind of challenges our very understanding of life itself.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this. So when we talk about the deep sea, what are we actually defining? Roughly speaking, it's where natural light starts to fade out, right? Maybe around 200 meters, about 660 feet down.
That's the general starting point, yeah. Or you can think of it as where the continental shelves start sloping down into the abyss.
And the conditions there, it's this brutal combination, isn't it? Low temperatures, pretty much absolute darkness, and this immense crushing pressure.
That trifecta really defines it. It dictates everything.
And that's why it's still our planet's greatest unexplored frontier, basically.
Largely, yes.
So our mission today is to try and crack open that mystery. Why is it so unexplored? We want to dive into its unique environment, look at the incredible biology. I mean, the adaptations are just astounding.
Mind-boggling, some of them.
Right. And then maybe touch on something a bit heavier, how even humans are impacting these super remote depths.
Unfortunately, that's part of the story now, too.
Just to give everyone a sense of scale, because it's hard to grasp. Imagine Mount Everest, all 8,848 meters of it.
Okay.
Now stick it in the Mariana Trench, which is, almost 11,000 meters deep?
Just about 10,911 meters, yeah.
You'd still have over 2 kilometers of water above the peak of Everest.
Wow. That really puts it in perspective.
It's an incredible, humbling thought, isn't it?
Indeed. And it immediately highlights the profound challenges, but also, paradoxically, the unique opportunities we get when we do manage to study such an extreme place.
The logistics must be staggering.
Oh, they are. But the insights we gain into life's resilience, you just don't get that anywhere else. It's unparalleled.
Definitely puts our own little endeavors in perspective. Okay, so let's dive right in. The deep's harsh realities. Let's start with the environment. How critical is that lack of light?
Ah, light, or the absence of it. That's absolutely the fundamental starting point. Once you get past that upper twilight zone, the mesopelagic.
For some light filters down.
Exactly. Below
Yeah.
that, nothing. No sunlight penetrates. And the implication is huge. No photosynthesis.
Right. No plants, no phytoplankton.
Which means the whole energy base is different.
Mhm.
Most life down there can't use the sun. They need external energy sources. Everything depends on what falls from the world above.
So life down there is, it sounds like it's perpetually on the edge, food-wise.
In many ways, yes. And that primary source is something called marine snow.
Marine snow. It sounds almost poetic.
It does, doesn't it? But it's vital. It's this
Yeah.
constant slow drift of sinking organic stuff from the surface waters.
Like what kind of stuff?
Oh, bits of algae, detritus, biological waste, basically leftovers from the photic zone raining down.
But it's scarce, you said.
Incredibly scarce. Think about how spread out it is. And it's not like it falls evenly all the time. Imagine trying to live off scattered snowflakes. But those flakes are your only meals for weeks.
Puts our surface buffet into perspective.
Doesn't it just...
Okay, so limited food. And then there's that pressure. You mentioned it increases by about 1 atmosphere every 10 meters.
Roughly, yes. Which means in the really deep trenches, you're looking at over 1,000 times the pressure we experience at sea level, over 1,000 atmospheres.
That's just hard to even conceive. And historically, that made studying things almost impossible, didn't it?
Yeah.
Specimens just couldn't survive the trip up.
Exactly. For decades, that was a huge barrier. Anything brought up was often dead, sometimes literally falling apart from the rapid decompression.
So how did we overcome that? What was the breakthrough?
Well, it was a major scientific hurdle. The big step forward came relatively recently, actually, with special pressure-maintaining chambers. These are built into traps or collection devices. Really ingenious engineering. They let us bring back larger animals, metazoans, basically undamaged, still under pressure.
So we can finally study them properly.
Yes. Alive and in good condition. It's amazing the ingenuity needed just to get a creature to the surface intact.
It really is. A testament to that scientific perseverance. Okay, pressure is force. What about temperature? That's another big factor. How does the deep sea's temperature profile look?
It's starkly different from the surface, as you'd expect. The ocean basically has two main zones where temperature changes a lot. First, there's the thermocline.
That transition layer.
Right, between the warmer surface waters and the cold, deep waters.
Yeah.
But once you get below that thermocline, the vast mass of deep ocean water is remarkably cold. We're talking maybe 5 to 6 degrees Celsius at 1,000 meters, and it gets even colder further down.
Unstable.
Incredibly stable. That's what's really unique. Deep sea temperature hardly changes over long periods. No seasons like we have. Very little year-to-year variation. It's probably the most stable temperature habitat on Earth.
Wow. But then you're the complete opposite at hydrothermal vents. Right.
Exactly. That's the massive contrast. At these vents, these black smokers, water shoots out superheated, sometimes up to 400 degrees Celsius.
400 degrees. How does it not just boil instantly?
The immense pressure keeps it liquid. But here's the crazy part. Just a few meters away from that scorching vent, the water temperature plummets back down to the background deep sea temp, maybe 2 to 4 degrees Celsius.
That thermal gradient is extreme.
It really is, and it raises a huge question.
Yeah.
How does life not just survive, but actually thrive right there in those incredibly volatile thermal zones?
Yeah, it pushes our understanding of life's limits.
Absolutely. It forces us to rethink what conditions life can actually tolerate.
Okay, and just quickly, salinity. Is that a big variable?
Not really, no. It's remarkably constant, around 35 parts per thousand. You only see minor ecological differences in places like largely landlocked seas. Pretty stable stuff, salinity-wise.
Got it. So, with these, frankly, brutal conditions in mind, let's journey even deeper. Because life really changes as you go down through the different zones, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We tend to categorize them to make sense of the shifts. You've got the bathyal zone first.
Let's 200 down to 3,000 meters?
Roughly, yes. It's kind of a transition. Then below that, the abyssal zone from about 3 to 6 kilometers deep. And finally, the Hadal zone.
The trenches.
Yeah.
Down to 11 kilometers.
Exactly. The deepest parts, like the Mariana Trench. And through all these zones, that theme of food scarcity is constant. We mentioned marine snow.
Which is only like 1 to 3% of surface production reaching the bottom.
That's the estimate, yes, tiny amounts. But there are also these larger food falls,
No.
things like whale carcasses sinking.
Ah, okay, like a huge temporary buffet.
Precisely, and studies suggest they might happen more often than we used to think, maybe one every 8 kilometers or so, which sounds far apart, but for the deep sea, that's a significant event. These become hotspots for activity.
And you see specialized feeders for this stuff.
Definitely. You see filter feeders adapted for catching tiny particles, like the sea star Fraiella elegans using its arms. And scavengers swarm those large falls.
It's just amazing how life adapts to getting any food down there.
Yeah.
What about just staying afloat or staying in place without burning energy? Buoyancy must be key.
Huge. Energy conservation is everything. And many deep-sea species have evolved this almost jelly-like flesh.
Jelly-like.
Yeah, it's made mostly of complex sugars called glycosaminoglycans. This makes their tissues really low density, lots of water content, so they're naturally, or almost naturally, buoyant.
That saves a ton of energy.
It does.
Ah.
And then you have things like deepwater squid. They actually use special chambers filled with ammonium chloride.
Ammonium chloride. Isn't that like waste?
It's a metabolic waste product, yes.
Yeah.
But it happens to be lighter than the surrounding seawater. So they literally use their own waste to create buoyancy.
That's incredible. Talk about efficient recycling.
Nature's ingenuity under pressure, literally.
So if they're saving energy on buoyancy, what about other things? Movement, finding mates. What do we see in, say, midwater fish?
Well, midwater fish have their own suite of amazing adaptations. They're generally quite small, usually under 25 centimeters.
Tiny.
Yeah. And they have slow metabolisms. They tend to have these unspecialized sit-and-wait diets. Just hang there and grab whatever comes close enough. Conserves energy.
Makes sense.
Their bodies often look elongated, maybe a bit flabby, weak, watery muscles, kind of minimal skeletal structures. Again, saves energy, helps with buoyancy.
And their jaws. I've seen pictures.
Ah, yes. Often huge, extendable, hinged jaws, and packed with these backward curving teeth, perfect for snagging anything, even prey larger than themselves, in that darkness.
And finding a partner down there must be tough.
Incredibly difficult in that vast darkness. So a common strategy is hermaphroditism.
Having both male and female organs.
Exactly. It basically doubles your chances of successful reproduction if you actually manage to bump into another member of your species.
Practical, if a bit strange to us. Vision. That's got to be wild down there. You mentioned spotting silhouettes.
Yes. What's fascinating here is this evolutionary arms race between predator and prey vision. Many deep-sea fish have these enormous, often tubular eyes.
Tubular.
Yeah, pointing upwards. And they usually only have rod cells, which are super sensitive to low light, unlike the cone cells we use for color. This setup maximizes their ability to detect any faint silhouette of prey swimming above them against the incredibly dim light filtering down from way, way above.
Okay, so the predators are looking up. What do the prey do?
The counter adaptations. They're brilliant. One trick is lateral body compression, becoming really thin side to side to minimize that silhouette.
Makes sense. Smaller shadow.
Right. But the really cool one is counter illumination.
Lighting themselves up. Doesn't that make them more visible?
You'd think so. But they use bioluminescent organs, called photophores, mainly on their undersides, and they control the light intensity to perfectly match the faint background light coming from above.
So they effectively erase their own shadow.
Exactly. They become invisible from below. It's incredible camouflage. Some fish even have biological mirrors, retroreflectors, behind their retinas to bounce light back through, making their eyes even more sensitive.
And flashlight fish.
Right. They use photophores almost like searchlights, possibly to spot the eye shine reflecting back from the retroreflectors of other fish. It's this constant game of detect and conceal using light.
Wow. Hide and seek with bioluminescence. Absolutely brilliant. Now, most life seems to rely on that trickle-down food, the marine snow or bigger falls. But you mentioned hydrothermal vents and a completely different energy source, chemosynthesis.
Yes, chemosynthesis. This is where things get really different. It's an alternative pathway to create energy that doesn't depend on sunlight at all.
Where does this happen?
Primarily around those hydrothermal vents we talked about, located often at seafloor spreading zones where tectonic plates are moving apart.
And how does it work? Like, what's an example?
A classic example is the giant tube worm, Riftia. These worms live right near the vents, and they have no mouth or gut. Instead, they host symbiotic bacteria inside their bodies.
Bacteria are doing the work.
Precisely. These chemosynthetic bacteria take chemicals spewing from the vents, things like hydrogen sulfide, which is toxic to most life, and they use chemical reactions to convert that into energy, producing sugars. The tube worm provides a safe home and delivers the chemicals to the bacteria, and the bacteria feed the worm.
A perfect partnership.
It is. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, these vent communities, based entirely on chemosynthesis, represent one of the very few ecosystems on Earth that operate completely independently of solar energy.
That's genuinely mind-blowing. Life finding a way using geology, not sunlight.
It totally rewrote the rules for where and how complex life could exist. A world built on chemistry, not photons.
Okay, so we've seen these amazing external adaptations, finding food, buoyancy, vision. But that pressure, that constant crushing force, must require changes deep inside, right, at the molecular level.
Absolutely. The deep sea forces life to re-engineer itself from the inside out. That immense hydrostatic pressure profoundly affects the basic building blocks of life, especially proteins.
How so?
Well, pressure messes with how proteins fold into their correct shapes, how they assemble into larger structures, and how enzymes, which are proteins, catalyze reactions. All critical functions.
So they just stop working right under pressure.
They can become unstable or their activity rates change dramatically. So deep sea species have evolved really intricate physiological and structural tweaks to keep their proteins working properly.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's take actin. It's a protein that's absolutely essential for muscle function. In really deep sea fish like Coryphaenoids armatus or Sea cunei, found below 5,000 meters.
Okay.
Their actin protein has specific tiny changes, amino acid substitutions at key locations, particularly in the active site where it binds ATP, the energy molecule.
Little changes make a big difference.
A huge difference. These substitutions, like swapping one amino acid for another at positions 137, 54, and 67, along with forming more internal salt bridges, basically, molecular bonds make the whole protein structure more stable and rigid. It allows it to bind ATP correctly and maintain its structure even under thousands of atmospheres of pressure.
Wow. So it's like molecular engineering to resist being crushed or distorted.
That's a great way to put it. It's these fundamental rewrites of the biological rule at the micro level. It really shows the plasticity of life.
And it's not just proteins, right? You mentioned osmolytes earlier, these chemical helpers.
Right. Osmolytes are small molecules that cells use to maintain balance and function, especially under stress. One really important one in the deep sea is trimethylamine oxide, or TMAO.
TMAO, okay.
In some cartilaginous fish sharks, and raise the concentration of TMAO in their tissues actually increases the deeper they live. It seems to replace other osmolytes like urea.
Why TMAO specifically?
Because it's incredibly effective at counteracting the destabilizing effects of pressure on proteins. It helps proteins maintain their shape and function. So having more TMAO is a key chemical adaptation for deep-dwelling fish.
Fascinating. And these adaptations go even beyond the chemical level to actual anatomy. You mentioned a snailfish.
Ah, yes, the Mariana Heddle snailfish.
Yeah.
A truly remarkable creature living in the deepest trenches. It showcases anatomical adaptation driven at the molecular level.
Oh, so?
It has a specific modification in a gene called osteocalcin, or burlap. This gene is involved in bone development and mineralization. In the snailfish, the modification leads to bones that don't fully ossify, they remain more cartilaginous, and importantly, its skull doesn't completely close, it stays open and flexible.
An open skull. Why?
Well, this raises a really important point. Standard vertebrate skulls, the rigid, fully ossified ones we see in surface animals, likely just can't maintain their structural integrity under that constant, immense Haddle pressure.
They basically be crushed or implode.
That seems to be the implication. So the snailfish evolved this radical solution. Keep the bones softer, keep the skull open. It's a fundamental change to the vertebrate body plan, driven by the extreme environment. It really challenges our assumptions.
It just makes you wonder what other completely unique solutions are down there, hidden away because it's so hard to explore.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? The deep sea is still fundamentally one of Earth's least explored places.
It really is. You often hear that phrase, we know more about the surface of the moon than the bottom of the ocean.
Is that actually true?
Well, the quote dates back to 1953 and was mostly about mapping the seafloor bathymetry. We've certainly mapped more since then. But in terms of understanding the ecosystems, the biology, the processes, The deep sea remains vastly unexplored compared to, say, terrestrial environments or even shallow waters.
Why is it still so difficult, even with modern tech?
The pressure is still the main thing, even in the mesopelagic. It makes everything harder and more expensive. But we are making progress. We have things like baited camera stations that can drop down and film. We have small crewed submersibles, though they're complex and costly. And increasingly, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, like the Nereus, which reach the Challenger Deep.
So we are chipping away at it.
Slowly but surely,
Yeah.
every dive potentially reveals something new.
But it's not just about discovery anymore, is it? There's a darker side. Human impact.
Yeah.
It feels so remote, but we're affecting it.
Unfortunately, yes, even down there. We do have international agreements like the London Convention trying to limit dumping of harmful stuff like sewage sludge or radioactive waste.
But other impacts are getting through.
Definitely. We've seen measurable declines in deep-sea coral populations, especially between 2007 and 2011. This has been directly linked to global warming, causing ocean temperature rises and, crucially, ocean acidification.
Acidification affects corals directly.
Very much so. Many deep-sea corals build their skeletons from aragonite, a form of calcium carbonate that's particularly vulnerable to dissolving in more acidic water. And these corals grow incredibly slowly, centuries sometimes. So recovery is difficult, maybe impossible on human timescales.
That's worrying. What else?
Well, there's deep-sea trolling, fishing boats dragging huge, heavy nets along the seabed.
That sounds destructive.
It's incredibly destructive. It just bulldozes entire habitats, destroying corals, sponges, everything in its path ecosystems that might have taken millennia to develop.
And mining. Is that happening yet?
Deep-sea mining for minerals is a growing concern. There aren't large-scale operations yet, but exploration and testing are happening. One study looked at a site disturbed by simulated mining activity.
And what do they find?
They found that fish populations dropped significantly for about 3 years after the disturbance. The good news, perhaps, was that after 26 years, the populations had returned to roughly pre-disturbance levels.
26 years is a long recovery time, though.
It is. And it only looked at fish, not the whole ecosystem structure. What's clear and kind of fascinating in a sobering way is that even the deep sea, this place we thought was untouchable, isn't immune. Our actions ripple downwards.
It's all connected.
It really is.
Wow. This whole journey into the deep sea, it's been extraordinary. Exploring these extreme conditions, seeing the sheer ingenuity of life adapting, but also realizing its continued mystery and its vulnerability.
It really is like exploring an alien world on our own planet.
A vibrant frontier, still mostly hidden.
And despite that isolation, that harshness, it's just teeming with dynamic life that constantly challenges our understanding of biology and resilience. Every find down there feels like unlocking some fundamental secret.
It really serves as a powerful reminder, doesn't it, of nature's adaptability,
Yeah,
but also our responsibility.
absolutely. A responsibility to protect even these incredibly remote corners, not just for the life there, but for the profound lessons they hold about life itself.
A really profound thought to end on. And for you, our listener, something to think about. Consider the implications if we discovered a completely new chemosynthetic ecosystem, totally isolated from human impact, maybe hidden deep within an unexplored trench. What fundamental beliefs about life on Earth might that discovery challenge for you?